Hi, my name is Mandy and today we're going to be talking about what I've read in April. This is my April wrap-up, but also my Owls wrap-up. Before we get into the meat of everything, I am going to give you guys my quick stats for the month. I read 12 books. 4 of those were physical. 1 of those was an audiobook, and 7 were mixed format books. As for my goals for the year, I participated in 1 readathon, but I did not actively participate in it like I wish that I could, or like I feel like I should. I read 1 nonfiction book. I read 1 book out of my comfort zone. I read 3 books from that general list that I had in my goal video for the year, and I knocked 6 books off of my shelf. So without further ado, let's get to it. For those of you who don't know, the Owls Readathon takes place in the entire month of April, and it has prompts that correspond to courses taught at Hogwarts. And if you fulfill that prompt, it counts as getting an owl in that course. And in August, she has the Newts, which is the next level of examination. What you have read for your owls builds so that you can take your Newts, if that makes any sense. I set a goal for myself to read all 12 books. There are 12 courses and 12 prompts that you can fulfill. And because I don't know what Newts I want to take, I wanted to do all of the owls. So those 12 books that I read each correspond to a course at Hogwarts, and I will go in alphabetical order of the courses. Mostly. There's one point where I deviate because I read a sequel, and yeah. So first up, for Ancient Runes, based on the Heart Rune, read a book with a heart on the cover or in the title. The book that I read has both, and that is Things We Know by Heart by Jessie Kirby. This book is about a girl who lost her boyfriend in a tragic accident. In an attempt to get some closure, she reaches out to everybody who received his organs as an organ donor. I guess an organ recipient, and everyone gets back to her and she feels so good about it, except for the guy who got his heart. Now, through some detective / sleuth work, she figures out who received his heart, even though it is supposed to be anonymous, and she goes to his town just to look at him. She doesn't have any plans to meet him or talk to him, but accidental stuff happens and they begin a friendship that blossoms. I loved this book. I gave it 5 stars, and you guys know that I do not give contemporary novels 5 stars very often. It was told so well. I loved the journey that she went on as a character, her character arc, and my love for this might just so happen to spawn from the fact that Return to Me is one of my favorite movies. That is a movie about a guy whose wife dies and he meets and falls in love with the woman who received her heart. That sounds a little weird, but I promise it's cute, and this book is cute as well. For Arithmancy, based on properties of 2, which is opposites and balance, you're supposed to read a book that is outside of your favorite genre. And I counted my nonfiction book for this prompt. I read I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Catherine McNamara. This book is about a woman and her search for the Golden State Killer, who was a serial killer and serial rapist back in the 70s. This is the book that brought the Golden State Killer into a more forefront in the world, I guess. And this book actually came out before they caught him. So it was kind of interesting to get a look before that and then to be able to do some research on my own afterwards and find out how him as a person fits into everything else. I did enjoy this book. I like listening to true crime podcasts, and so this was like a true crime podcast in book format. I thought that Catherine McNamara did a really good job with flow, and it was nice seeing bits of herself and her story versus his story, and overall a very good read. I gave this 4 stars. For astronomy, we've got Night Class, read a book primarily at night. The book that I chose for that was also my book that was out of my comfort zone. The book that I chose to read was Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys. This book is about a teenage girl who is living in Lithuania in 1941. At this time, Russia invades the Baltic states, basically takes over, and then arrests everyone who is against it and their families and ships them off to Siberia for work camps. The main girl, Lena, is taken from her bed at night to this work camp, and it's all about her story and what happened. She is an artist, and she tries to keep hope and faith by drawing and kind of portraying their story of what's happening in secret, because obviously bad things will happen if people see art depictions of what is really happening. What Ruta Sepetys likes to do is take these lesser known stories and bring them to the forefront of our minds. And that is what she's done with Between Shades of Grey. Not a lot of people know that Russia killed millions of Lithuanians and Estonians and Latvians during this time because it was hidden. And the survivors could not talk about it until after the Soviet Union fell. Anyways, I am Lithuanian. My grandpa is 100% Lithuanian. His parents immigrated here to the United States. And my mom is very into family history, and she's been trying to get me to read this book for a few years now, and I've just been kind of dragging my feet because I knew that it would be a tough thing to read. All the best things are, right? One of the reasons that she's been trying to get me to read this is that her grandpa's brother actually disappeared at this time in history, and nobody ever saw him again. So it really helped her to understand what happened to this ancestor of hers. And for me, it helped me to really feel closer to my heritage, and I did really enjoy being able to feel closer to that Lithuanian side that I don't really know that much about. I gave this one 5 stars. If you couldn't guess from all of my gushing, it was a great book. And I should probably have a conversation with my mom now that I have actually read this. Next subject, Care of Magical Creatures, and based on the hippogriff, read a book with a picture of a beaked animal on it. And for that one, I chose to read An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. This is set in a fairy world, and a girl lives, there's basically like a human settlement on the outside of fairy, and she lives there. And because fairies cannot create anything, no art, no clothes, no food, they can't do that. It's considered craft. The fairies are very interested in the humans and what they do, and that's why this human settlement exists kind of on the outskirts. So the main character, Isabel, is an artist. She's the most renowned artist for the fairies, and she paints the portrait of the Autumn Prince. Now, unfortunately, she paints it like she sees it, and she paints human sorrow in his eyes, which is not something that fairies are supposed to be able to feel. So he gets mad, he kidnaps her, and along the way they get into a whole lot of trouble. That's all I'll say. I'll cut it off there. But I did enjoy this one. I gave it 4 stars. I did not enjoy this one quite as much as I enjoy Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson, which seems to be a little bit opposite. A lot of people seem to really love this one and not be as impressed by it, but that's just how I felt. I gave it 4 stars. I did enjoy it. For Defense Against the Dark Arts, based on the Grindylow, I was supposed to read a book set at the coast. The book that I read was The Season of You and Me by Robin Constantine. This is about a girl who's just gone through a breakup, and to get away from it all, she decides to spend the summer at her dad's house. He lives at a New Jersey coastal town, and she gets a job as a camp counselor at a day camp there. And through that job, she meets Brian. He is a paraplegic who lost the use of his legs through an accident a few years or I think only like a year before this. And Brian has been feeling frustrated about how people treat him now that he can't walk, because he feels like he's essentially the same person and people think that it's too hard to deal with him. And Cassidy, our main character, does not, and so he's drawn to her because she treats him normally. They grow closer, and yeah. I did enjoy this one. I give it 3.5 stars. It's just barely above middle of the road. It's cute. It's fun. It's not the most amazing romance I've ever heard, but if you're just looking for something to get you out of this crazy world for a minute, I say go for it. And this is the point where I'm diverging a little bit from alphabetical order. For divination, you're supposed to assign numbers to your TBR and have a random number generator pick your next read. For this, I read Gemina by J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. This is the first book in the Illuminae series. The Illuminae series, the first book is about a illegal mining operation that essentially gets bombed by a rival company in space. These are sci-fi novels. And so a group of refugees takes off from that planet, and they're trying to race to rescue in safety while they are being followed by the rival company ship, essentially. And you find out a lot about what is going on and why they attacked and all this stuff. So that was the first book, and the second book takes place in a different part of the galaxy with a different set of characters, and the story is continuing with this company's bad choices. That's all I'll say. I gave this book 5 stars. I liked it almost as much as I liked the first one. The only bits that were like, was at the beginning. It took me a little bit of time to get into the story, but after I was into it for the long haul, and I loved it. For charms based on Lumos Maxima, read a book with a white cover, and I did stretch this one just a little bit, but there is white on the cover. And I chose to read Obsidium by J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. So this is the sequel to Gemina. It is the last book in this series, and this book takes the two sets of characters from the first 2 books and brings them here along with another set of characters, and it is the final battle, I guess. I loved this book as well. I thought that the series ended so well, and it had a great conclusion, and that's all I'll say without any spoilers. For Herbology, based on Mimbletonia, read a book that starts with M. And would you believe it, I only have one unread book on my shelves that starts with an M. I was really surprised by that. So I didn't really want to read it at the time, and I wasn't sure what to do for this prompt. And then through my library, Moment of Truth by Casey West became available. You may recognize this book from my anticipated books, but it did not have the same title. At some point between January and now, they changed the title from what it was, I can't remember, but it was a mouthful, to Moment of Truth. This book is about a girl who is really super focused on swimming. She is on the swim team and she is uber focused, as I said. Now there is a movie character named Heath Hall who is kind of like this super spy guy, I think. And there's a guy who dresses like Heath Hall and does some crazy random stunts. And so as she's getting ready to do her big race, the meet is interrupted by this Heath Hall guy who jumps in the pool, swims around, and then takes off, which completely blows her concentration. And then she's like, ah! And so she starts trying to figure out who this Heath Hall guy is, and it takes her on a journey, and cuteness and romance happens. Because it's a Casey West book, and that's what you can expect, cuteness and romance. I rated this book 3.5 stars. It wasn't my favorite Casey West book, but it was cute. If you like Casey West, I definitely recommend checking this one out. For History of Magic, read a book with witches. And I chose to read The King of Crows by Libba Bray. This book was also on my most anticipated releases for the year. This is the fourth and final book in the Diviner series. The Diviner series is essentially, it takes place in the 20s in New York, and there are some paranormal things happening, and diviners are people who have these special powers. The main character, Evie, she can read objects and tell about the owner. There's another person who can heal. There's someone who can walk through dreams. And the whole series has been building up to this confrontation with the King of Crows. I did enjoy this one. It wasn't amazing. The first book was my favorite in the whole series. And after that, it's just been a little bit less favorite. So I gave this one 3.5 stars. For Muggle Studies, read a book that is told from the point of view of a Muggle, aka a contemporary. So for that, I decided to read Virgin River by Robin Carr. This book just became a Netflix series that they recently released, and so I wanted to read this book so I could watch the series. The Netflix series is rated TV-14, so I figured that the book would be safe. The book is not rated TV-14. So, just a warning for you, all you out there who don't like graphic sex scenes, like me, this one does have graphic sex scenes. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. It's about a girl who has recently lost her husband, so she needs a change of pace, and she takes a job in a little town called Virgin River. She is a nurse practitioner and midwife, so she comes to help the doctor, and then she meets a guy named Jack who's cute. And yeah, I enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars. I think what I really liked about it was it felt like a unique setting. Usually when you're reading a book about a small town, you are reading about a town with a cute center square with a gazebo, and there are cutesy shops and a downtown area. But this small town is not like that. Basically, if you blink, you will miss this town. None of these stores really have signs. You have to know they're there. They're just built out of houses, and I don't know. I just thought it was quirky and a fun way to have a town. And I enjoyed the story, and I enjoyed the conflict and all of the characters. It just felt like a unique place that I hadn't read about before. So I enjoyed that aspect. 4 stars. For potions, based on the shrinking solution, you had to read a book that was less than 150 pages. And for that one, I read Quidditch Through the Ages by Kenilworthy Wisp, aka J.K. Rowling. This is one of the charity books and supplemental books that J.K. Rowling has come out with to go along with Harry Potter. This book was great, but also I listened to the audiobook which includes extra content, including commentary from the 2014 Quidditch World Cup from Ginny Weasley, who is the Daily Prophet correspondent for Quidditch. The extra content was awesome. I mean, the book itself is fun to read anyways, but the extra content was fabulous. I gave everything 5 stars because it's Harry Potter. I can't give it anything lower. For Transfiguration, based on the Animagus, I had to read a book with shape-shifting in it, and I had trouble choosing a book for this because none of the books that are on my radar involve shape-shifting right now. But eventually I settled on reading The Tales of Beedle the Bard by Beedle the Bard, aka J.K. Rowling. This is another one of the supplemental books. I got the illustrated edition for Christmas, and so I was able to go through and see the pretty drawings and the stories. I'd only read through The Tales of Beedle the Bard once, and so it was fun to read through it again, especially with the illustrated edition. But by far the best part was the commentary by Albus Dumbledore after each of the stories. I gave this one 5 stars. It's a collection of short stories that are essentially children's stories for witches and wizards, and great, great book. So there you have it. That is what I read for the month of April. A pretty good reading month, and I was very proud of myself for making it through all of the prompts. Tales of Beedle the Bard I finished at like 11:30 on the last day of April, so I made it in there just barely. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you chose to read for the owls. I hope you're having a great bookish day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!